Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of HP Critical. It is a podcast where my friends and I talk all things gaming. My name is Jarrell, and I am joined by Brandon.
Hey, what's up?
And Marissa's here this week.
Hello.
It's so great to have both of you here. Before we jump in, how you guys been? What you been playing? Happy Hispanic Heritage Month to everybody who's listening. But yeah, how you guys been? What you been playing?
Me, last podcast I mentioned that I was on the Blue Lions Route of Fire Emblem Warriors 3 Hopes. I am now done with that. When Christy is here next, I am going to bring this up again because I had a lot of problems with this route, actually. Like, there's some good stuff, but they introduced a lot of plot holes, actually, didn't get to... Edogar got done so dirty in this route. I am kind of upset about that. Like, even in Three Houses where you're playing as Dimitri, even though Edogar was your enemy, she still got respect. Holy shit.
They disrespected my girl?
Yeah. We'll talk about it next time Christy's here because she and I can go for at least 2 minutes on that, but we'll save that for another podcast. Anyway, yeah, so I finished that at least. So currently the two games I'm kind of bouncing back between is Astrobot and Ace Attorney Investigations Miles Edgeworth as part of the Ace Attorney Investigations collection. On case 4 of the first game, so I'm nearly done with that. It's down to the second one. Yeah, Astrobot's not too long. I'm about 200 bots in, so that's going well. Gonna try to finish that up and then get to Persona 3 episode Aegis before Metaphor ReFantasio comes out. So, yeah, games are coming out fast, everyone. I'm trying my best. But those are the two mains that I'm juggling, Astrobot and Ace Attorney Investigations.
I'm on some Animal Crossing bullshit. Yay! So I'm glad Gabe's not here. Besides that, though, I've also been playing No Man's Sky for the first time since 2016 because I was one of those people who bought it originally and was like, oh, this is not at all what was promised. And I had been seeing, of course, that there had been updates coming out and that people were like, hey, if you bought it and you want to get back into it, now's a great time because blah, blah, blah. And just didn't really pay attention for years until I was like, you know what sounds wonderful? Is just floating through space, finding planets. So I've picked that up. It feels like an entirely new game. It's so good. So yeah, that's been my other thing besides Animal Crossing.
I have been playing Visions of Mana and Astrobot, and I love them both.
Yeah, you do.
I love them both. We had a very spirited conversation before this podcast that I'll leave off of this podcast, but I love them both, but I just know I'm gonna be mad at the end of the year. That's all I'll say about that. So instead of doing a news podcast, we're gonna talk about two big things. One of them is the PlayStation 5 Pro, and the other is The Sims 4. So we'll start with the PlayStation 5 Pro. It was recently announced as the most visually impressive way to play games on PlayStation. This is from PlayStation Blog. We got a lot of information regarding the PS5 Pro, including pre-order dates. There's an upgraded GPU. There's advanced ray tracing. There's AI-driven upscaling. There is going to be... I'm not going to go over all of that stuff because they're just numbers. Just know that it's a better system that looks better, and importantly,
number go up.
Go up, exactly. Most importantly, I know that Brandon has mentioned this before as something that he's been looking forward to. Most importantly, the biggest change is that you'll be able to have graphics mode at 60 frames per second instead of 30 frames per second, because a lot of games on PlayStation will have you decide between 60 frames per second and worse graphics or better graphics and 30 frames per second. And the PS5 Pro specifically will allow you to finally do both.
Both.
Which is a very big deal. Some games, I did mention to Brandon, some games do allow you to do this, but not very many. Yes. And this is, and there's also been a release by Digital Trends of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, a comparison side by side playing on the PlayStation 5 and the PlayStation 5 Pro. You should definitely check it out. It's very enlightening because a lot of numbers that Mark Cerny said made no sense, but when you see it in action, you can very much, I think, you can very much see the difference, and Brandon can talk about it as well, but I think you can definitely see the difference if you see it in action, which I think works much better than numbers. But let's talk about the PS5 Pro. So I'm going to give you guys the floor right after I tell you how much it's going to cost. So the PlayStation 5 Pro will be available this holiday at a manufacturer's suggested retail price, MSRP, of $699.99 in US dollars. $699.99 in the British pound, and $799.99 in euros, and 119,980 yen in Japan. It will, this is an important number, it will include 2 terabyte SSD. Anyone who knows that I've talked about PlayStation 5, I've always complained that it doesn't even have 1 terabyte, which is ridiculous. But it will include 2 terabyte SSD, and it's launching November 7th, and it does not come with a vertical stand. The vertical stand, I believe, is $40.
I think so.
And
sorry,
it doesn't come with a vertical stand, so this is going to be $40, and it is digital only. So if you would like to purchase you can purchase a separate disk drive to attach to it, which will run you $80. So if you want a
I'm sorry.
If you want a PlayStation 5 Pro with a disc, it is going to be $700 plus tax, depending on where you are if you're in the US. And then you'll also have to spend another $80 plus tax for the additional disc drive to attach to it if you have video games that are on disc that you would like to play. And if you are used to holding your console in a vertical position, you'll have to spend either another $20 or $40, I think it's $40, another $40 to purchase a vertical stand. And that's where we're at. Beautiful. It looks beautiful. There's lots of fidelity, and I'm going to give the floor to you guys. How are we feeling about PS5 Pro? Price, specs, release time? How many years has it been? 4 years since the release of the PlayStation 5? So we're probably another maybe 4, 5, 6 years out from the next console. So tell me all your thoughts about PS5 Pro.
I want to jump in just really quick because I had a joke, because when you were like on the PlayStation blog, they said that the PlayStation 5 Pro is like the best way to play video games, and I was like, that sounds like a PlayStation wrote this. I'm just saying.
With AI upscaling.
PlayStation would say that.
PlayStation wrote it with AI upscaling. This is the best place to play. Here, on me.
On me.
PlayStation Sean
But yeah,
says.
that was the main thing I wanted to jump in on first, because I was like, I'm not going to remember partway through this conversation.
Your joke, yeah, no, it's totally fine.
Yeah, so I guess I'll step in first. As you stated, the Pros is literally doing the one thing that I really wanted, because let me tell y'all something. When I got the PS5 and started playing some of the PS5 games exclusive to it, obviously, like many people, I was enjoying all the improvements that the system offered with its games, even for the games that were when you play certain PS4 games on PS5, they would look a little better. Certain games had those improvements. So I've for the most part, I've enjoyed my PS5 fairly well. But what always annoyed me is that when I was getting into especially the games that were like made for PS5, is that you would have to choose between, the graphics mode, which, got you like your nice 1080 to 4K visuals, but only 30 FPS, or you did, I think that's actually fidelity mode. Yeah, fidelity mode was that. And then performance mode got you, 60 FPS, but then the graphic quality would go down. And that was annoying to me because I'm looking at this like, but why can't I have both? It's just like, I thought the system was capable of both. Why do I have to choose that for these games that are made for it?
I'd
And
also like to note really quickly that both you and I have TVs that are capable of running that as well. So it is really annoying to try to future-proof yourself for a television set that is capable of doing what, you know, we're assumed is advertised, only to find out that you can't do it. So that's also another caveat.
Yes. But. Absolutely. Yeah, no, I do. One of the reasons why I wanted to push for like a really nice 4K OLED TV was because I had the PS5 now. It's just like the games are capable of the games I own on this system that I own are now capable of doing all these like crazy things. So I want to be able to like really enjoy that. Mm-hmm. So it was always annoying to me that I really had to choose in that regard. So, you know, PS5, especially as we were going down the road, and you know, we're getting games like Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart or Spider-Man 2, and you know, these great games that are made for PS5. There is no PS4 version of those two games I just stated. Those were made for PS5, and you would still have those issues. It felt like we were finally getting to the point where we were seeing what the PS5 was capable of, but it was still being held back. And so now we're getting the PS5 Pro here that, you know, in that initial reveal by Mark Cerny, they were showing like a bunch of games that are going to be improved with the PS5 Pro. You know, they showed a lot of first-party games. They'll show a few third-party games as well there. So we know that this support is going to be going for several games, really. And, you know, it's doing what specifically what I asked for. Is like, it's going to eliminate that choice and make it that you can play it at those high fidelity visuals while also not suffering performance, having those nice 60 FPS. Bro, like, just a real quick aside, I was playing the PS5 version of Crisis Core Final Fantasy, and because it's basically just an upgraded like PSP game, it was running 60 FPS no problem. That was so nice.
Yeah.
And then the visuals, at least, you know, the backgrounds themselves were a little low texture. The areas yourself were small because, again, it was a PSP game originally. But the actual character models themselves looked like they were from Remake or Rebirth for the most part. So to me, it almost was kind of like a window of what some of the Remake and Rebirth could be, having these great visuals with the 60 FPS. But it just wasn't. Like, Rebirth was obviously way more gorgeous than Crisis Core, but I was at 30 FPS, and that was fine, but I wish I was at 60. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, getting back to the point here. So we finally have the console that can do both. And then we get to the cost of said system. And that's kind of where I'm going to circling in here. Now, I have heard people make the comparisons to, oh, well, if you get a PC, that's way more expensive, and this is cheaper ultimately than getting a PC. You're not wrong.
I'm not buying a PC. God
correct.
No, I'm just kidding.
No.
That's 100% right.
That's 100% right.
So interesting is that all three of us are not PC players. So, like, that's why I'm like, okay, this is a conversation for us to have.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Like, I do not play PC. That is a choice that I make. Yeah, this is cheaper than a PC. I will grant you that. If I was to get a PC with the highest settings of these games, that, you know, if you have a really good PC and you're getting, like, say, the PC version of some of these PlayStation games like God of War or Spider-Man or what have you, you're getting exactly what I'm talking about. You're getting the 4K at the 60 FPS. So that's the one benefit that you would have to wait for those PC versions if you got it like that. But for someone like me that just, like, plays, you know, I play my systems because it's nice and easy and convenient to do, and it's ultimately cheaper to do. That's why I do this. And so we're going to the PS5 Pro. Again, yes, it is cheaper than getting this PC. But for the average consumer, this is still really prohibitively expensive. And I think there's too many people on top that are only thinking about it from the way I just described it. Like, well, it's cheaper than the PC market, so it's still competitive pricing. Yeah, but like a lot of consumers aren't thinking about the PC market. Otherwise, they would have already bought into that. You're trying to sell this to the market of people that are buying video game consoles and not gaming PCs, for the most part. And I think when you think about it from that perspective, which I don't think a lot of them really did, this is a bit outside the price point for a lot of people for what you're getting. And not to mention, as you stated, the vertical stand and the disk drive are also separate. So if you are, for me, I get like, if I was to get the PS5 Pro, I could at least skip on the vertical stand because I keep my system horizontal with the way I have things set up. But I would still need a disc drive because I have a shit ton of PS4 and PS5 games physical that I would need the disc to play, and I would just lose out on all of that. What were you gonna say before I continue?
I'm so sorry. Like, I was actually looking for a tweet that was talking about the price of they were talking about how, like, if you were to buy a comparable PC, it would actually cost more than what the PS5 Pro is charging, even for like parts specifically. So technically, the PS5 Pro will have you saving money for what you would have to purchase if you were going to buy a PC. So it's not technically cheaper to buy a PC. It's actually more expensive to buy a PC.
That's what I was saying. No, that's what I was saying. That's what I was
Oh,
saying.
I
Like,
thought you were saying it's cheaper to buy a I'm sorry, I misunderstood you. I thought you were saying it's cheaper to buy a PS5 Pro than it is a PC.
Correct. That was the point I was making. That's what.
No, I'm saying the opposite. No, am I saying the same thing as you?
I think we're saying the same thing. The PS. Are you saying that the PS5 Pro is cheaper than getting a really good PC? Is that what you're saying?
No. So yes, but the PC would be more expensive. I'm saying the PC would be more expensive than the PS5 Pro.
That is also what I'm saying.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
So sorry. The reason that I'm so frazzled because I was trying to look up the price points that I had liked on a tweet, so that I could bring them up after your conversation. And the reason I made that face and I'm so frazzled is because I just saw a breaking news, guys, and I can't wait to tell you guys this to hear your reaction, unless you saw this an hour ago, because I didn't see it because I wasn't on Twitter. But it was reported an hour ago that Nintendo and the Pokemon Company are officially suing Pal World developer Pocket Pair for multiple.
Put that in our Slack.
I missed it for multiple patent infringements. I did not see this. So as I was looking for that tweet, I was like, they're finally suing them like a year for multiple infringements.
8 months later.
Almost a year later? How did I not see this? Where is this? What? Like, you know, it's so... this is not what the podcast is about, so I won't go on about this, but you put it in. I think we were on this call already, so I didn't see it. I was not in Slack.
You guys were talking about Game of the Year, and I was like, you haven't played shit. Oh!
I'm so gobsmacked right now. I'm so sorry. But yes, I agree with you, Brandon. We're saying the same thing. Whoa. That just threw me off completely. Because a lot of people, though, have been saying that it's cheaper to build a PC. That's what I've been hearing. I've been hearing a lot of people say that it's cheaper to build a PC.
It can be. It can be. It can be cheaper to buy a PC build a PC rather than purchase one that can do everything that you want to do, because you get the individual parts, you can customize it more, all that good stuff. But even if you are building a PC yourself, putting in the effort, if you still want it at the absolute best settings in the market right now, it's still going to be more expensive than PlayStation 5 Pro, especially if you are getting like high quality parts for said PC. You're looking at grand minimum, but obviously you can go much higher than that depending on what parts you're getting, what kind of PC you want to buy for. And that was the point I was making, that, you know, that on the people on top that were deciding the price for the PS5 Pro, are probably thinking it from that perspective. And a lot of people are thinking it from that perspective, that the pricing does seem competitive because you are comparing it to the PC market that can also do these things that I have been asking for, and a lot of people have been asking for. But I'm talking about it from the perspective of the people that buy consoles, that don't look at the PC gaming market, that are buying video game consoles, because, you know, it's a lot easier to use, for one, and it's a lot easier. Well, it's a lot lighter on the wallet, obviously. Like the systems, if you're looking at a good video game, even the high end ones like the Xbox Series X, significantly cheaper than what you can get for like high quality PCs. When the Pro comes out, that'll be the highest, if I'm not mistaken, it'll be the highest end video game console that you can buy. And
Yeah.
It's just not a lot of people are going to buy. This is a very tough pill to swallow for a lot of people if they're not used to how expensive it can be to get these things at the highest settings that they may want. I know I was absolutely shocked seeing this price, and even even thinking about it from the PC market. Again, I'm a console player. Like, you can give me all those justifications, but that's precisely one of the reasons why I don't play on PC for the how prohibitively expensive it can be, the work you need to do for building, and just the general. I may be on this podcast, and I may do streams, but I'm not particularly great with computers. There's a lot of trial and error to get where I'm at right now, and I still have many questions on the path that I walk upon. But that's just to say that I'm just like not really a PC person. So yeah,
the way that you are not alone, Brandon. I just want everybody to know that we have a struggle every time we try to do a podcast. Like, there's almost always a struggle because technology is always against us. Okay, and that's why we play on console. Straight up,
that is just how it be. So yeah, PS5 Pro, like, it's so expensive, especially since like the regular, that's really like. I like all these words or whatever you explain my point, but at the end of the day, it's just so damn expensive, man. And the worst part about it is people are in some parts of the world are already struggling just to get the base PS5. There's a news report not too long ago about how the price for PS5 is raising in Japan. Y'all remember when we had price drop for consoles?
Yeah.
Now we're just like the price is raising over there. Yeah, we talked about this last podcast, but I'm going to say
we also talked about how the controller is more expensive now, and they quietly made it more expensive without announcing it, and that's here in the U.S.
Yeah, that too. So it's getting more. So if you want to get into DualSense for your Fancy Pro, that's another thing too. Hopefully, you're just going to hang on to your DualSense if you already have a PS5. If you don't, oh boy. But yeah, but all I'm saying is like we talked about this last podcast, I'm going to say it one more time. Yeah, there's a lot of people in Japan that wanted to play Final Fantasy 16 and were sad they couldn't because they either couldn't get a PS5 or it was too expensive for them. And it's just going to get harder now. The Pro is even more expensive, and of course, wherever marketed, it's obviously going to be more expensive than the PS5. That is already prohibitively expensive in a lot of different markets. So, like, I know there's some people out there that's going to really enjoy the functionality of the Pro, really enjoy it, but I think just for the average person, it's just kind of expensive. I don't know too much more I could add. I'm sure I can when you guys talk, but I'll leave it at that for now.
There is, I don't have the conversion. I was looking to see if I could get the conversion, but essentially it's almost $1,000 for a PS5 Pro in Europe.
Yeah.
Just on like conversion rates alone. And I talked about this as well, which is just there's a sweet spot for consoles. No one is going to pay more. There's a sweet spot for consoles, which is the $300 to $500 range. Once you get past that, you have a disconnect with your consumer base, and it's everything you mentioned, Brandon. Like, the economy is really not great right now. A lot of people cannot afford to just go out and buy a console refresh mid-console 4 years in. And also, I think it was okay. So I think that Mark Cerny did a huge disservice to the PS5 Pro with the way that it was announced. I think that Digital Trends has done a better job at showing the capability of the PS5 Pro by showing us the difference between a PS5 and a PS5 Pro using Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. And I think if you would have started with something like that, the reaction might have been a little better, because all we got was a lot of talking points and a lot of, this is going to cost you $1,000. Like, yes, I'm rounding up, but for $700 plus anyone who has a PS5 with a disc, if you want to keep playing your games on disc, you have to then spend the extra $80. So that's already $780 before taxes, depending on where you live. Where I'm at, it's a 7% sales tax, so I'm already looking at $800 plus, and then my PlayStation 5 happens to be in a vertical standpoint. I've positioned my room to a point where it can stand up, because that just so happens to be how I use mine. I would have to either redesign things, change the way my setup is, or spend an extra $40 to get it to stand up the way it is. We're talking about, I wanted to get a new computer. I'm literally talking about, like, the amount of money that I've saved up to buy a new laptop for work would cost me my PlayStation 5 Pro. My PlayStation 5 Pro. And that's the number that you really have to think about and be willing to pay for, knowing that we're probably about 4 to 5, maybe 6 years away from the next PlayStation. So it really is just like can you hold off and can you afford it? Because at this point, all consoles are luxuries. Like, just straight up, all consoles are luxuries. And one of the reasons that I think the Switch does so well is because you can get it at an affordable price. You can jump into the Switch at, what is it, like $150 for the Switch Lite, $200?
It's $200 for the Switch Lite, or $250. One of the two. $200, $250 for the Switch Lite.
You can get a used one for like $150, $200. That works perfectly fine. And you can jump in at $200, $250, and you can get a regular Switch for $300. I think it's $200. I think it's $100 difference. Because if it's not, I would just say save the $50 and just go for a Switch, unless you want it for portability.
It must be $200 because you're right. That seems
and then you can also just do stuff like grab an Xbox Series X. You can grab an Xbox Series S. It's not the greatest option because compatibility with certain games and stuff. But if you really want to jump in, that's less than $300 if I'm not mistaken.
That's $300 on the dot. The same price as the Switch.
So like, there are options, right? And PlayStation's going to start selling the PS5s used for half the price of a PS5 Pro. So I think it's a hard place to be because you can't really make it cheaper than $700 just by comparison to the the tweet that I was looking for, like comparisons to creating a PC. Like, you can't make it cheaper because it's literally already cheaper than what it would cost to build it yourself, right? So like, you're already in a state of losing money essentially because you're buying parts that are more expensive than what you're putting into the final price of the console. So it's a very hard place to be because it's like, we're already losing money on this, but then when you announce a $700 price tag, first of all, that is $300 from $1,000. Period. And
even when you were talking about sales tax in California, we're here sitting at 9s and 10%. So you're talking about
crazy.
You're talking about paying $800 for the $700 console just because of taxes alone, not including any of the additional things that you have to get for it. That should be standard, like
yes, and that's where I was gonna say, like, if you're gonna charge the $700, you could at least throw in the disk drive. Like, you could at least throw in the disk drive, because you're really putting customers who have a disk drive at a disadvantage if they want to upgrade. And also, California charges you some weird tax for water, so of course they're gonna charge you extra money for a PlayStation. Crazy! Like, I will never not forget that. Oh my god. Like, very short tangent. I think I had texted you, right, Marissa? Did I text you? I think I texted you. Because we were in California, and that lady at the CVS was confusing me, and I was like, why are y'all charging me for 2 waters? I only want to buy 1. And she was like, this is right. And I was like, no, it's not. Like, something's wrong with this money. And I literally had to text Marissa and be like, why is this lady trying to charge us extra money for this water? Only to find out that you have to pay extra taxes on water. Crazy! And now you gotta pay $1,000 for a PS5 and extra money for water? Don't go to California. It's ridiculous. It is ridiculously expensive.
Moral of the podcast:
don't go to California. Like, that's just it. Don't go there. Don't live there. It's too expensive. Just don't come here either. We're also too expensive. It's horrible. Just go somewhere else. Like, just don't come here either. Oh God, what a tangent. Yeah, it's very hard because you can't, there's no real sweet spot, like, for the amount that's going into the PS5 Pro. But at the same time, I still think that that $300, $500 range, once you get out of it, you get a lot of backlash. And PlayStation has gotten a lot of backlash. And I think deservedly so, because nobody has that. Like, no one has $1,000 to throw away when your PlayStation 5 is working fine, right? Like, if your PS5 is working fine, and you do have the money to I shouldn't say nobody. Of course people have the money to upgrade, and they should if they want to.
Bro, I thought of it. I too had thought of a joke because you just said that.
Mm-hmm.
So as a fellow watcher of Boondocks, I'm sure you've seen this episode where Riley goes to the house of Ed the Third and Jin Rummy, and they're playing like on the Xbox, and then Ed loses the game, and he's like, "Restart the game." And it's like, "But I beat you fair and square."
Oh.
And then he just pulls out his gun and just shoots his Xbox
Yes.
right there.
Yes.
I said, "Restart the game." And then his butler comes, removes the broken Xbox, and puts in a new one immediately after, and they start playing again. I'm like, bro.
And you know what? If you could flex like that, go buy a PS5 Pro, bro. Go buy a PS5. I was 100% like, horrible deal. Don't go buy this. It's way too much money. PlayStation's out of their minds. And then, because I'm a graphics whore, I saw the Digital Trends video. And I was like, damn. Rebirth looks amazing. Like, it looks so smooth. It looks beautiful. And then I saw this tweet that was like, oh, if you trade in your PlayStation at GameStop, you can get $450. And I was like, that's like half the price. Like, I'm taking like $300 off. I don't know. This is seeming a little more viable. And then I was like, damn, but I would still have to buy the disc drive, which is like another $100. So like, it's not $300 off. Now it's like $200. And then I got to buy the stand. And then I'm probably going to end up having to buy another DualShock. And I was like, well, now it's just regular price. Like, what happened? I just lost the PS5 and it's still regular price.
That was very girl math. And
I do this all the time. That is, my girl math is all the time. I'm just like, well, that just became $1,200. And now that's the price of a MacBook Pro. And I would rather buy a MacBook Pro, so I can't buy a PS5 Pro. Yeah, so Marissa, you don't have a PlayStation 5. How do you feel about...
I was gonna... That's part of the reason why I laughed when Brandon was talking about some people in some parts of the world are having problems getting a PlayStation 5, and I was like, well...
Me.
If that wasn't me. Yeah, I don't have a PlayStation 5, and it's not for lack of wanting one. Just kind of like context for anyone who's listening. But I think my first thought when I heard about you get the PS5 Pro, but then you got to get the disc drive, but then you got to get the vertical stand. I was like, what in the Apple bullshit?
Exactly.
Where everything is so piecemeal that feels like it should just be all encompassed in this one piece of machinery, especially if you're going to be paying that price. Now, I get what you're saying about, if you were going to make a PC that was comparable in terms of just performance alone, of course, you're going to be paying more. So, is it really that, oh man, the corporation side of Sony, who's like, we want to make more money, has no problem disregarding that there's going to be a lot of consumers that cannot have this console. They can't pay this price. And especially in an economy that, people are talking about not being able to afford groceries.
Exactly.
And then you're going to put out this $700 console that, again, when you start adding in taxes, when you start adding in all these additional components that you have to get just to use it the way that you want to, because if we were to do that example of getting the disc drive here, I think it would almost be $1,000.
Oh, 100%.
You've got the 10% tax on the disc drive, so that's not even trying to get the stand or anything either. So it does make it feel like gaming is going towards this trend of it purely being a luxury as opposed to a hobby. I get that, yes, a console is a luxury item. You don't need one in your day-to-day life. It's not a necessity. It's, it's something that you do for fun. But I can't remember what the average was, and I think it might still be like a couple years old since I've seen it. But it's like, on average, people spend like yearly, like $227, $250 on their hobbies.
I saw that.
Not like a
like,
there's so many different hobbies that are so expensive.
Yeah,
so I don't really
that's
think
not me.
That's accurate.
Yeah,
you know, but I mean, definitely, like, I could see where gaming, when it's not a console release year, you know, sure, if you aren't buying every game that comes out, if you aren't playing every big title release that comes out, sure, you know, that seems like a totally reasonable thing. You know, that still gets you a handful of games that you can enjoy, play throughout the year. If it's something that has a lot of replayability, you know, you're really starting to talk about, like, that seems like a feasible thing. Where you, like, actually, though, how would you like to spend $1,000
yeah,
on your hobby? And that doesn't even get you a fucking game. You
yeah.
know, this isn't like a PS5 Pro. See, I'm seeing PS4 because that's all I fucking have. That's not even a PS5 Pro with, like, some sort of, and this is going to be our Persona 5 Royal fucking release. This is going to be our Rebirth console, you know, so that way it has Rebirth that just comes with it. You don't have to get it, or maybe it comes with both Final Fantasy games and you pay, you know, $50 more, $100 more, what the fuck ever, you know, because I realize either way you're saving a little bit of money, just not a lot if it's $100 more. But you know, it doesn't come with anything to get you started. And sure, if you've had a PlayStation account for a long time, if you have games that are compatible, you know, you don't necessarily start from scratch. You can just go out and still get a PS5. They're not going to pull them all from the market or anything like that. But I just feel like we are getting to a point where people are getting priced out of gaming now. And I think that that's so much more a detriment than if it was something that more people could purchase, could feel comfortable purchasing. Like, they, you know, just like in your example of, I have to now weigh, do I want to put off buying something for work, or do I want to spend money on a PlayStation 5 Pro? You know, where it's like, of course, for a lot of people, that's going to be the work side of things. If you have, you know, the ability to get one, great. That's fantastic for you. How many gamers don't?
Yeah.
You know, how many gamers can't? And, you know, especially, I think the thing that's kind of crazy to me, and that I'm like, I don't think maybe gets talked about a lot at the executive level of, like, great, you probably are projecting that there's going to be a, you know, a pretty big amount of PS5 owners who aren't going to upgrade to the Pro. You know, that's probably factored in, you know, but how many people are going to look at that, scoff, and be like, I'll just wait the fucking 5 years, the 6 years, however long until the next one's announced, you know, because maybe they would have been interested in an upgrade, but then they saw that price and just said, I don't think a single console is worth that much money. You know, granted, if you make money some way through gaming, sure, that could be something feasible to you, right? Or if you just already have the money to, you know, to do the upgrade, then great, that's even better for you. You know, but how many people now can't experience games the way that, you know, even on your own blog you're talking about people being able to experience? You know, what cost does that have towards the gaming community and PS5 or PlayStation fans, and, you know, just gaming fans in general, that there's going to be so many people who either can't or are unwilling to make whatever cuts in order to afford that? You know, again, when a lot of people, middle class people, are talking about struggling to afford groceries. You know, like, I think time wise, you know, maybe if this would have happened in a time, you know, economically that was a little bit better, a little bit more stable, sure, they could probably do that. And people be like, well, you know, as long as, you know, some of this cost is maybe going to the people who, you know, are actually working on this thing and not just going up top or anything like that. I mean, sure, you know, it is going to cost more to make games. It is going to cost more to make consoles and stuff like that, you know, totally. But I think just like the time that it got announced, with all of the other things going on, everything else going on with the economy, everything that people just can't afford, and the things that are skyrocketing in price, it almost kind of feels like, great, here's another thing that's skyrocketing in price that I don't feel is justified. It at the end of the day, it is a luxury to upgrade your console. And how many people are going to actively choose not to do that luxury, even if they could feasibly make it work?
I kept thinking, like, I know Japan knows that it's an election year.
Right.
Like, I know they know it's an election year. So this announcement comes a couple of months before the U.S. presidential election. And I'm just like, this is just a bad time, because this is just a reminder about the economy that we're trying to fight for in the U.S. right now. And you're just like, hey, drop $800. But then also at the same time, I was just looking up the price of the PS5 right now, and it's between $450 to $500. And I did say that $350 to $500, the $300 to $500 range is really what people are willing to spend. So if you look at it that way, it's like, damn, are you willing to spend an extra $200? Because I shouldn't look at it that way, because I do think that the PS5 Pro is basically for people who already have a PS5. I don't think people are buying into PlayStation 4 years later and going directly to the Pro. Like I think that this is very much a transitional console. There was something else I had to say, but I've forgotten about it. So let's move on to The Sims 4, unless anyone has anything else that they want to say about the PlayStation 5 Pro.
Just curious to see how it's going to do. Well, hold on. Let me actually retract that slightly, because
okay.
Regardless of how good a console will ultimately do or how bad it will ultimately do, you really can't get those numbers like the first release, because the enthusiasts will always go for that immediately. Even hell, the Wii U was sold out for like the first month. So
don't do the Wii U like that, Brandon. Okay.
All I'm saying, man, it was pretty hard to get Wii U that first month, being a Nintendo enthusiast. If I only waited a month. Anyway,
oh my god, speaking of that, sorry, what's crazy is that people literally have spent $700 for a base PS5 in 2020 when they were completely sold out. Like, people were paying scalpers those prices, so.
Yeah. The thought of going much higher than that to pay a scalper is just ridiculous. I don't know if scalpers are going to profit this much, just because there's barely enough people that I think are being talked into getting it by itself, that I think the scalpers are going to end up eating their money, which that's nice at least. So they'll have to eat that.
Maybe
cost.
That's what PlayStation. If we don't include a disc drive, what can scalpers do? No.
That's true. They have to offer both or something. Yeah, exactly.
To your point too, though, I think it's going to be really interesting when we start to see the reports of where Sony thought they were going to be in selling PlayStation 5 Pros versus where they actually end up. Is it going to be about the same? Is it going to be a lot lower? Is it going to be a lot more? I'm kind of interested to see how it goes overall for them. I just feel like there's going to be a lot of people who just don't make that transition. Is it going to be as much as they predicted? I have no idea.
I had something else to say about PlayStation. I really don't remember. But they did upgrade I don't know if you guys have been on your PlayStations, or if you have access to a PS5, but they have upgraded their menu screen with the latest update, and it's really cool. You can actually add a little background now, and it has like widgets, and super nice.
Okay.
Yeah, super. I'm sorry. I keep getting messages now about Power Worlds and and Nintendo. So I keep. Okay. The Sims 4, our last conversation for today. We dived into PlayStation and PS5 Pro. I did promise that we're going to talk about The Sims 4. So let's dive into The Sims 4. The Sims 4 came out in 2014. I said 2014 earlier. Yes. In 2014, 10 years ago. And EA has said that they will not be making The Sims 5. They will instead continue to support The Sims 4. And they wanted to do this because they did not want people to feel like they have invested in 10 years worth of content and put 10 years worth of money into stuff packs and expansions, only to lose it all by starting over and going with The Sims 5. However, The question I pose to you guys is, what does that do according to The Sims? Does this open the gate for competition against The Sims, as it has been the reigning champion of simulation play since the original Sims, and now on to The Sims 4, and they're not making a Sims 5? Does this open the gates for competition to come in and do what The Sims is not doing or is not innovating on? Do you think it is the right idea to allow the game to continue only on The Sims 4 instead of upgrading to The Sims 5? Is it a good reason to? Do you think that they should just scrap it and start on The Sims 5? Do you think it's time to innovate? How are you feeling about EA's decision to stick with The Sims 4 for the foreseeable future after 10 years of content?
Well, I will speak as an outsider looking in because I don't really play The Sims. The reasoning they gave, on surface makes sense. Because if people have invested as much time into Sims 4, then, there'll definitely be some pains moving on to a new game and losing all of that. But, honestly, I think this is a bad move. Because I feel like Sims is not an MMO. I don't think Sims 4 was designed to be that either. It's not. It was never designed to be a game that you would play forever. It was designed to be the latest Sims game, and they would update it for a good while, as these games tend to do, and that they would eventually move on. I think it lasting as long as it has is ultimately their reason for making this decision. Like it's not. It definitely wasn't a long-term plan. I'm positive that they looked at Sims 4 as, again, just another Sims game that they would update for a while and then move on. But then it lasted as long as they did, and they were like, we could just keep making money on this. We don't need to. And they're making it seem like it's for the consumer, being like, then y'all don't lose your stuff. It's just like, it's short-sighted. It's a very shallow reason that I think is ultimately going to bite them sooner rather than later. Because, as you brought up the great point, competition. People are gonna get bored of this after a while, and they'll want to move on. Like, I know you and Gabe have double teamed me on Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, and that's a very fairly good point too. But the saving grace is that we are like 95% confident that whenever the Switch successor comes out, there'll be a new Mario Kart game finally.
Who is we?
Take over.
I think they're just gonna keep up with Mario Kart 8, because why not?
Well, we can circle back to that if that happens, and maybe I'll have, and maybe the way I'll feel about Mario Kart 8 Deluxe will change drastically if that's the case. But for now, I'm of the assumption that the Switch successor is going to finally give us a new Mario Kart. But that's the point I'm trying to make, is that, as long as that game has been supported for a long time, but eventually they will move on, and Sims was going to need to do the same. I think them prolonging it is going to do more harm than good in the end. And I think when they really realize they've made a mistake, it might be too late. It's the Sims. They'll get back to where they are, but it's gonna be a rough start whenever they decide, oh shit, we actually do need to do Sims 5. But that is just my outsider take on it. I would like to turn it into the people who have played Sims to tell me what's up.
Well,
Cozy Gamers would like to have a talk with you.
Yep.
About how long they keep games alive and going, especially in the instances of those that can be played on PC with mods.
Mm-hmm.
Look at Stardew Valley.
Yeah.
I don't remember Stardew Valley's release date because I wasn't playing it back then, which I'm Googling really quick. 2016.
Mm-hmm.
So it is 2 years younger. And we just had a massive, no one expected it, 1.6 update, which was a huge fucking deal.
It's almost like an expansion.
Yeah, what they did was that the creator really took a lot of inspiration from the modding community. They even hired I don't know the terms of was it a freelance, was it hired as an employee or whatever, but hired one of the people who made the biggest Stardew Valley mod called Stardew Valley Expanded. It was basically like if the game were to continue to be expanded on, if new areas opened up, if new NPCs were in the game and everything. Um, there are so many people who have so many different reasons for wanting to play The Sims. And this isn't trying to like, God damn it, Brandon, let me, like, no, I'm just trying to like, go from I think The Sims 4 could be a game that, as long as they continue to add some free updates here and there and continue to add some new performance things here and there, that The Sims 4 could go on for a very long time before it was finally like, okay, this is just too aged now. And I think that would more be, at that point, it would just be like they have to keep putting patches that technology itself is, making very difficult for them. But they can just release constant new expansions, especially since they do release expansions, as opposed to Stardew Valley, which only has patches every now and then, not paid DLC that you ever have to buy into. Um, people can buy the pieces of the game that they are interested in. If you want to get all of it, it's a lot of motherfucking money. In order to have access to every single part of the game, but you don't need to. You can just kind of pick and choose, or what, payday just hit. I'm going to get a stuff pack. And then, oh, look, I've got some spending money for the holidays. I'm going to get an expansion pack instead. I think it's something that could go on for a really long time. Now, do I believe EA when they say that this decision was made for the people? Not necessarily, no. I think their track record with making decisions that are nice to consumers' wallets speaks for itself.
Mm-hmm.
However, I think that because of all the different content creators who play it, who have done things with their game that weren't necessarily intended, but really opened up the game. I mean, they do have a very open conversation with some of the biggest Sims content creators about, okay, what do we add? Because clearly there wasn't enough clutter, because people are shrinking down items and stuffing them into shelves and stuff like that that weren't meant for any items to go into, but yet they're making it happen functionally. They're doing all of this stuff with tools that are inherent kind of in the game, or that one or two mods can help. I could see that if The Sims was strictly a console game, probably no. I think you would be absolutely right that this would be short sighted, just because the console's going to age, and how many people are going to spend over $1,000, which it's at over $1,000 if you want to get everything for The Sims. Who's going to spend that much money to constantly be downloading DLC? I get like microtransactions and cosmetics and stuff like that, but just kind of like on a, how many people are going to do that just because you continue to add these new items to the game that they feel like should have just been base game, or something along those lines. I think that conversation doesn't happen as much with Sims, because of course that's how their thing has kind of been. Sims 3 was all about expansion packs. I wasn't really paying attention to Sims for Sims 2 to know if they had like DLC and stuff like that
They
too.
did.
Okay. So I mean, that's shit. It's been their thing for a while now with The Sims, right? But I think the community is what keeps it alive and keeps it well for a very long time to come. It's just kind of to see, is EA going to kind of continue with that mindset of, yes, this is absolutely better if we, don't have people start at square one, because I think you are going to have people who would just keep playing The Sims 4. They wouldn't want to start over because they have sunk so much money into all of the DLC, all of the expansions. While you're absolutely going to have people who, they're like, I want to play the newest, latest, and greatest Sims. I think it's a game that really does lend itself to not continuing with The Sims 5 now. I don't feel like this is a decision from EA that it's never going to happen, just it's not for the foreseeable future. Um There was another goddamn point I was gonna make, and I can't remember because I was gonna be like on the flip side.
Well, I'll jump in then, if that's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
So I made a face and I laughed. The reason I did that is because I was thinking how funny it would be if you told someone they have a choice, and their choice is either the entire Sims catalog for The Sims 4 or a PlayStation 5 Pro, because they cost about the same. And they're going to be over $1,000 no matter which one you choose, which
I'm
one
not
you're
saying
going with.
I've bought everything in The Sims.
No, but like you're not wrong though. Like it is that expensive. And I actually agree with Brandon here, and I think that this is a bad idea. And I specifically think that it's a bad idea because I think there's a difference between the community loving your game and the community keeping your game alive. And I think that The Sims 4 is at a point where like the community is doing all the work to keep the game alive, because so many of, even like there was a very prolific Sims creator who has been creating since The Sims, I think 2 or 3, that I used to use, and they were like, I'm retiring. This is just too much. Like weird. And even to your point of like, people are making the things that the game is not giving you. And I think that like, now, to me, I agree with Brandon. I think it's time to start over. And I think what you do is, specifically because The Sims 4 is not an MMO, it's not a multiplayer game. And we have so many, little niggling notions of competition coming up for what The Sims could be. There are a lot of people that are very excited to see what it could be. They're excited for the innovation. And there are a lot of content creators that are literally done with keeping the game alive, because it feels like that's what people are doing. And there are a lot of people like me who was a huge Sims supporter, but The Sims 4 does not have the same heart in it. It doesn't feel the same. And that's what a lot of people have been complaining about. So that you have these issues, that the community's keeping this game alive for you. And instead of like, I personally, just me, don't hate me, anybody who's listening, but I personally think it's time for, after 10 years, it's time for a reset. Because it works for games like Grand Theft Auto Online, because that is an online game you could play with friends and you have mods and you can do all of these things. If The Sims 4 were online and you could connect with friends and continue to do everything with mods and stuff, I would 100% agree and say, you know what? It's working. People are online. They're communicating together. They're able to make a new experience, because one thing that keeps games that gives games longevity is the ability to play with friends, and to be online. Like that is why that's why people last in MMO so long. Because you get to breathe new life into this game. However, there's only so many families you can make in The Sims before you've run through all of your ideas. Or there's only so many things you can build before you're going to have to look for custom content to get further into what you want to do with the game. And then even then, there's too many issues, there's too many bugs, there's too many patches. Every expansion has another bug in it. And they've basically been playing catch up, like catch up, not ketchup. Wow, that sounded so close to ketchup. The Sims has been playing catch up with a lot of stuff. And so they've done great things, like they've gotten content creators to come in and really add stuff that they're not adding themselves. But after 10 years of the same shit, like, your game is, first of all, The Sims 4 base game is free. If anyone doesn't know, you can literally just go buy it. So like, if you wanted to, you could literally just to not buy it, you could literally play it for free. You could go download The Sims 4 for free, download a bunch of custom content, and literally have the same experience as someone who, not the exact same experience, but you can have a very similar experience to someone who has bought into almost every expansion pack. Because there are enough mods to basically do everything that's already been given. I do think it sucks when you have to start over, when you've invested a ton of money into a series and then you have to start over. But I think that The Sims 4, that is missing the charm that a lot of people say, is because there hasn't been enough innovation from 10 years ago to now. And the mods are not doing it. For me, personally. The mods are not enough to bring it to the new level.
That was even something that, because I bought The Sims 4 when it first came out,
And you
and
had to
it was
pay for
something
it
that was,
because it wasn't free
well,
in the
yeah,
beginning. Yeah.
it was not free in the beginning. I had to buy that shit.
Same.
Um, you know what? I got back by not buying The Sims 3, but don't tell you yet. But no, and I think to that point it's one of those times where I feel like I talk a lot about shit, and then Jarrell's always like, you changed my mind, and now I feel like Jarrell talked a lot of shit, and I was like, you know what, you changed my mind. I think the problem with it missing a lot of heart was something that it was there in the beginning.
Yeah.
It was just so, and a lot of the packs that came out were like the EA, what the fuck are you,
Yeah. And they're just trying
laundry
to,
day,
it feels like they're
you
trying
know?
to replicate that by throwing a bunch of pack stuffs at you and expansions at you. Like, oh, people used to
Mm-hmm.
love this. We're just going to throw that in there. But then you'll
Yeah.
see, I don't remember the name of the game. I think it was canceled, but there was a Sims competitor that looked much more realistic than The Sims 4, which is, you know, still a 10-year-old game that looks like a 10-year-old game, and then you have mods that
Yeah.
make it not look like a 10-year-old game. And it was I'm sure you guys have seen it. It was like this hyper realistic game. Like the people looked like real people, and they were basically coming in and they were going to do what The Sims was not doing. And there was so much hype around that because people were like, it's time for us to innovate, it's time for us to move on. And that game got canceled.
Mm-hmm.
So now I think the problem is that there is no competition, and I think there should be, because that's when innovation comes. So I would love to see someone else come in and do what The Sims has been doing for 10 years but better, and give us something that's like, this is what we want, EA. Because right now you took a game that has no soul and you're throwing a bunch of expansion packs at it and forcing us to try to buy our way into loving what's not there. To me, this is all my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
want
yeah,
to,
yeah, yeah.
like, it's just not there.
Just to kind of continue off of that, hopefully the competition comes next year from Paralives. It doesn't have a like official release date, but it does have a tentative one of 2025. So I'm hoping that that's going to be where some of that competition and some of that, hey, you're missing out on these. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
here's this other game that is going to be able to do all of that. Looks different, feels different, will breathe a lot of life into those who really, really, really like to play simulator games, especially life sims like that, not just like supermarket simulator and, like
Yeah.
a full life simulator. So I think I there was something, oh no, I think that was the point I was gonna make, is that like there is some competition out on the horizon, although Paralives is the only one I can think of at this moment. I think there was one other that's just like fallen on the edges of my brain and I can't find it. But I do think, there is both that community will keep things going as well
Mm-hmm.
as, but the community can get burnt out. And so if you aren't keeping in check with your community, if you aren't keeping things up to your community standards, then absolutely the community will get burnt out on it.
Yep.
And I think even from, I realize I probably don't look at gaming and stuff the way as some people, because I, even with the conversation of backlogs, right, I'm like, if I played a game and got my enjoyment out of it, even if I didn't beat it, even if something like that, like I consider that still a win for me,
Mm-hmm.
because I got enjoyment out of it.
Yeah.
I don't feel this immense pressure from my backlog, because I'm like, those games are there, and one day it'll happen, but I'm not going to force myself to do something I'm not in the mood for, because then I don't want to be not enjoying it, and that's the only reason why, is that
Mm-hmm.
I was not in the mindset to play something, right? So I think a refresh, a restart, sure, there's a little bit of that bitter pill to swallow of, oh my god, I've spent X amount of dollars on this game.
But that's the good
But
thing
I
now.
think,
If you don't like it, you can
yeah,
just continue to play The Sims 4.
exactly, it's not something that's forcing you, like, sure, do you want the new thing? Probably.
Yeah.
But I think even going to that part of it's not online is that you're not like all of a sudden your friends are playing Sims 5 and you're not, and you have no way to communicate with them. You had no way already, unless you were just like, this is what's happening in my little world of Discord. And they're like, great, this is what's happening in my world. That cannot, it made no sense to me when Sims 4 came out and it was not multiplayer.
Yeah, that's what people were expecting. Yeah. And it's still not. So, 10 years later.
Yeah, so I'm kind of curious what conversations must have happened behind closed doors for them to be like, actually, no, we're not going to move forward. That isn't this is for the players.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't buy that shit for a goddamn second.
It very much feels like, the other game was Life by You. It very much feels like, yeah, we're comfortable. We're in a groove. We don't need to do anything. And I hope it bites them in the ass.
Yep.
With that, we've been on for an hour, so that's our time. You guys, this was fun.
It was great.
Yeah, so thank you, Brandon. Thank you, Marissa. It was wonderful. And we'll talk to everybody later. Bye, guys.
Bye.